So today is the fifth day, fifth talk on the 10 Paramis. And these 10 Paramis, perfections, qualities of character, are one of the values of them is that they really intend to bring our practice into the wholeness of our life. Sometimes it's easy to focus just on meditation practice and to hear the teachings of Buddhism, the teachings of all through the kind of vantage point of just how it relates to my meditation. For some people, Buddhism is mostly a meditation practice, and that's fine. Meditation is fantastically useful. But the opportunity is to expand out practice to include our whole life. In fact, one of the turning points for me in my own practice was I was meditating twice a day, morning and evening, for 40 minutes each time. And it was very meaningful for me to sit that way, and I felt a feeling of integrity, authenticity, wholeness that I had not been familiar with before in my life. And then one day I realized that why do I have those feelings of wholeness, integrity, authenticity only in meditation? Isn't the line between meditation and non-meditation in my life kind of an arbitrary line? Why don't I have those in my life as well? And that was the beginning of my expansion of the practice out into my life. And then for years, I would say the inspiration to deepen and engage in Buddhism more and more, and it meant going to live in monasteries and practices and really was not so much to go deep in meditation, but to find a way to expand what was happening in meditation into my daily life, so that it wasn't so much to become a Buddhist as it was to allow the goodness, the integrity, the wholeness, the freedom that I was discovering in meditation, to discover how that can exist in my whole life, everywhere I went. So these paramis are part of this whole life endeavor of Buddhist practice. And now we come to the fifth quality, which is virya, is the Pali word, V-I-R-I-Y-A. And it's generally translated into English as effort. And effort maybe is a nice kind of compromise word, or a middle way word for all the different ways it has been translated into English. And maybe I'll explain that as I go along here. And this virya has an interesting etymology in Pali and Indian languages, and that it comes from the word hero. And hero is, so it's kind of has a connotations of heroic effort. Now I'm very aware that for English-speaking audience, especially in the United States, because of cultural, sociological conditionings we have, the word effort can give the wrong connotations, and it can feel like kind of excessive work or striving or pushing, too much involvement of self in it. And now we talk about heroic effort, and it's even worse for some people. But a friend of mine told me yesterday how, in talking a little bit about this word virya and connected to heroic, and she pointed out how that nowadays we consider a lot of people who've been for years have been going to work day in and day out without maybe much of this seeing as heroes, are continuing to do this, and now there are heroes. People in the medical professions and first responders who are really working in the forefront of the COVID-19 epidemic we have, and working in the hospitals and putting their own lives at risk, some of them actually dying. And we really appreciate their heroic effort, what they're doing there. So this word virya, heroic effort, is kind of the connotations about this. And there is, in fact, an heroic aspect, or tremendous effort that can go into really deciding not just to do some meditation practice, where we have to be very careful about the kind of effort we make, but a kind of effort to really make this practice fill our whole being and really fill our lives, to take the fullness, the potential of this, and see that this is not only about stress reduction or relaxing or being kind of some open and peaceful, but this is not only is something that this practice is a freedom that's meant to be total, full, and then expanding outwards in circles beyond ourselves into the world itself. The Buddha was heroic in his efforts to teach, his efforts to practice. Imagine, he didn't have any manual, book, teachers, audio dharma to learn something about meditation and practice, and he had no one to practice with for what he was going to discover, his freedom. And he talks about going against the current of popular culture of his time, what he was doing. And he discovered something. He discovered the depth, psychological heart depth of freedom, of release, of goodness, the paramis, the kind of a full flowering of the human potential in a certain spiritual way. And was he heroic in doing that? And are we the recipients of that heroic effort? Maybe. So as a parami, effort follows wisdom. And this is the protection for effort, because the idea is to have wise effort. And the idea of wise effort in Buddhism is to, very simply it says, is to avoid effort which is unwholesome or unskillful, but to engage in effort which is wholesome or skillful. And one way, and I kind of translate this into modern English, is to avoid the effort which is not helpful, but engage in the effort which is helpful. Now, how do we know what effort is helpful and not helpful? And this is also something I've seen in myself and also in people I've talked to, a strong tendency to want to have or to have a singular definition or understanding of what effort is, and then measure everything against that one idea of what it is. But in fact, effort is something that changes all day long. The amount of energy, the amount we apply to what we do, the endeavors we're involved in, the amount of effort we put into those endeavors, the amount of energy we put into it, is quite variable, and we're constantly adjusting and changing the energy level, the effort level that we're doing. And in a sense, for Buddhist practice, there's never going to be a final, perfect, on-the-mark effort, energy level we make. We're always adjusting and changing through the day, through the days, weeks, months, years. We're always finding it. And part of helpful effort is this finding of right effort, which becomes second nature. So it's not so self-conscious. In the same way that someone riding a bicycle is constantly shifting and changing the amount of energy they apply themselves to making effort, bending on their hill, going uphill, downhill, whatever's going on. And for good bicyclists, it's kind of second nature to adjust and change. But the same thing with Buddhist practice. It's a constant kind of becomes second nature to know when to make a strong effort and when to make almost no effort at all, and everything in between. Now the word energy is sometimes a very nice translation of virya, but energy does not say anything about what we're doing. And the virya, the right effort, also has this implication of knowing what to do. The endeavor, particular endeavor, that's also we're engaged in. The right Eightfold Path factors, right endeavoring, and the Buddha says something like if you take a a piece of gravel, a rock, and no matter how hard you squeeze it, you will not get oil out of it. To get oil out of, you have to squeeze the olive, and then you'll get oil coming out. So the idea that making a lot of effort for the wrong thing is not helpful. So what is the helpful thing to do? And again, as I said, this comes from wisdom. Wisdom teaches us that how not to be harmful, how not to add stress, how to understand where freedom is, where letting go of clinging is, where letting go of selfishness and self-consciousness is, and to engage in an effort to keep opening to a way of engaging and working and being in the world that doesn't have a lot of selfishness or a lot of self-consciousness, self-preoccupation, self-measuring, both in positive ways and negative ways. To engage in effort that's not greedy or not pushing or striving, but still to engage, to make effort. But what's the effort we make? There's so many different kinds of endeavors we do. And one of the most powerful ones we can do is the continuity of simply inclining ourselves to the freedom, the teachings of freedom, the practices of freedom that Buddhism is about. The difference between someone living an ordinary household life and work versus someone living in a Buddhist monastery is not so much they have lots more time to practice, but rather the context of the monastery puts them in the inclination, in the reminder about the values and the possibility of freedom and thinking in dharmic ways throughout the day. That doesn't take a lot of effort, but you're just constantly there and being reminded. To live a life where we're simply inclining throughout the day towards freedom, towards the Dharma, to kindness, towards mindfulness. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of self-conscious effort. It's just to be reminded over and over and over again. That's one example of effort. And exactly what that heroic effort is, as I said, changes, but it's supposed to be wise effort. And the more we become wise, by really learning a lot from the fourth parami, the more the efforts we make are onward leading, or liberating, and are a delight, so that it's just so happy. I don't know if it's reasonable to say, but sometimes the effort feels like play. It feels like, it's just in a playground of the Dharma. And there's a lot of energy that's put into it, but it's energy of play rather than the energy that obstructs or strains or gets tight or exhausting. And I hope that you will consider your relationship to effort, the ways in which the word effort maybe points to what you know gets in the way of practice, is not helpful, and what you know about effort that is actually helpful and meaningful and maybe even a kind of play, something you delight in, enjoy, and feels really good to get in the flow of just really doing it and being carried along. May you make wise effort. And part of wise effort is to understand your relationship to effort and free it from all the ways in which effort is a hindrance. So, thank you very much, and I'll see you on Monday. And for those of you, I wanted to point out that the statue that's here of Patachara, I was hoping that she would be here for several months, and we would all enjoy her and appreciate her presence here. However, it's a brand new statue, that wooden statue that was gifted to us. And it was made in Bali, which I think is much more humid. And then dry, hot Redwood City in the summer. It's meant to go to the Insight Retreat Center, our retreat center in Santa Cruz. It's developed a little crack in the base here, so it's probably not going to spread too far. But the decision's been made to bring it down to Santa Cruz. It's near the ocean, where it's a little bit more humid, in order to let it cure more slowly and maybe keep it from cracking any more than it is. So I think it'll be here maybe on Monday, but then maybe that's the last day. And so if you see it here on Monday, you might enjoy her, or Sunday morning, might enjoy her a little bit more here. And thank you very much.